Hello, I'm Ira David Wood III, better known as Scrooge, during the Christmas season here in Raleigh. We are sitting in the beautiful John Bento Garden here out front of Theater in the Park, where we will begin rehearsals very soon on our production of A Christmas Carol, which this year celebrates its 40th year of production here in Raleigh. This year we will be playing in two venues in Raleigh as well as in Durham at the Durham Performing Arts Center here in Raleigh downtown, to our second home, which is Raleigh's beautiful Memorial Auditorium. If you haven't gotten your tickets yet, get on the phone, get them, because they're going to be rare as hen's teeth. We got a lot of good things planned this year. Among them will be the matinee here in Raleigh on December the 14th, which we are calling our big reunion performance. And that's a performance where we invite everybody who's ever been in the show before to come back to Raleigh. And at the end of the production, we invite them up on the stage to sing the final two numbers in the show, the Christmas carols Noel and Joy to the World. When we celebrated our 30th anniversary, we ended up having 200 people on the stage. So I think this year it's going to be quite magnificent. We've invited Michael C. Hall and Frankie Muniz and a couple other more of our more famous alumni to come back, and we hope they're going to be able to make it. We started the show 40 years ago because we were doing a season of Shakespeare. When we got to the Christmas show, Willie the Shake obviously had not penned a Christmas show, so we decided to go to the next best English author, Charles Dickens. We call him Chucky D because we are very familiar with him and feel like we have a relationship with him after 40 years. I wanted to do an adaptation that was faithful to the book, and yet we wanted to update it. I wanted it to be a family show where adults could come and have as much fun as the kids. So we knew we had to balance the humor. We had to have adult humor in there. We had to have a lot of sight gags and colorful movement for the young people. And I think one of the greatest compliments we've gotten over the show over the years comes from the dads. God bless mamas, because they're the ones who say, we're going to A Christmas Carol, clean up, get in the truck, we're heading down to Memorial. But the best thing is after the show when the dads come back and they will say, I didn't want to come to see a Christmas show, but this is one of the best things I've ever seen. I'm going back to the office. I'm going to tell everybody that they should come and see the show as well. We opened here at Theater in the Park, which only seats a little over 200 people. When we opened the show, none of the other theaters in Raleigh were doing shows over the holidays. And I always thought that was strange, because the holidays are certainly a time that families want to be together and to be able to do things together. So I thought we should open up our doors and do A Christmas Carol, which we did. We had to sell the seat cushions off the sofas in the lobby in order to handle the crowds that came. And after about 3 years here at Theater in the Park, we were up to, between 18, 19 performances. And I finally said, I'll tell you what, let's move down to Memorial Auditorium. We'll play to 2,500 people a night. We'll play for one weekend and play to as many people as we play at Theater in the Park. So we moved to Memorial Auditorium. By the second year we were down there, we were back up to 18, 19 performances. That's when IBM bought out 7 productions just for their own employees to come. So on Christmas morning, everybody in the cast just rolls over in bed and goes, Merry Christmas, because we've had Christmas for about 3 months before everybody else gets it. If you walk into our lobby now at Theater in the Park, Christmas tree is already up. And it's just the end of September as I'm doing this interview. We've been very honored over the past 40 years that people have made this production part of their celebration of the holidays. We have so many people tell us that they come to see the show, they leave, they go home, and they decorate the Christmas tree, and the holidays begin for them. Over the course of 40 years, there have been a lot of stories that have come back to us associated with the show. One particular story I remember being told about a grandfather who came with his family to see the show. They came in a van. Everybody got in the van. They came to see the show. He walked out after the show. They all got back in the van. They were ready to leave, but Granddad, who was driving, didn't turn the ignition key on. And they sat there for a few minutes, and finally they started looking at each other like, what's the matter with Grandpa? And he thought for a minute, and he turned around and he said, you know, I've been Ebenezer Scrooge for the past couple of years. I just realized it tonight. And I want to make you a promise. I'm not going to be Scrooge anymore. And they said it was the merriest Christmas they had ever had, and that man did 180. You hear stories like that over 40 years. There are hundreds of them. I think one of the most meaningful ones had to do with a lady whose name was Charlotte. She lived in Charlotte. We got a telephone call that she had been given some bad news that day, that she had terminal cancer. And the people who were with her, her friends and family, wanted to bring her to the show to lift her spirits. When I got that message, I said, well, please, can you bring her backstage? We'd love to meet her. And there's a big room in Memorial downstairs where the company meets to warm up vocally before the show. And Charlotte came in before the performance that night, and it was a love feast. The cast, which numbers around 90 people, just gathered around that woman, and the cast members from age 4 to ageless hugged her, welcomed her, talked to her, loved her, and she spent a good 15 minutes with us. She got ready to leave, and to this day I do not know why I said what I did, but I called out and I said, Charlotte, will we see you next year? She stopped in the doorway and looked at me like I had lost my mind. She thought about it for a couple of seconds, and you could see it click in her mind, and she said, okay, I'll see you next year. That lady made it for 3 years to see A Christmas Carol. The third year she came, and I would ask her the same question every year, will we see you next year? And it was always the affirmative. And the third year she said, I'm not so sure. And I knew in my heart we wouldn't see her, and we didn't. Because I don't think you leave this world until you are ready to go, and I think she knew it was her time. But for 3 years, that show became a milestone for her. Every year during the show, after the show at the curtain call, if a baby has been born in the cast, we bring that baby on stage after the curtain call, and I sing the lullaby, which is a number that we do in the show. I sing it to the new members of our Christmas Carol family. I do that because I think it's incredible to be on that stage, particularly a newborn, and to feel the love that washes over that stage every night from 2,400 people. You're never the same when you feel that. People will say, oh, you know, how do you do it every year? Oh, it must wear you out. Oh, you give up so much to do the show. I go, no, you don't understand. It's the most selfish thing I do all year. To stand on that stage and be loved by that many people is like taking a shower on the inside. You walk out, you feel rejuvenated. And if we can pass a little of that on to the audience, I think it's great. We had a woman come to the theater the day after seeing the show. We were working in the office, and she literally kicked the front door of the office open. She came in with 2 huge tins of Christmas cookies. And she blammed them down on the desk, and she said, here, Merry Christmas, eat them all. I said, what? She said, I came to see your show yesterday. I went home, I couldn't sleep. I started baking Christmas cookies and singing Christmas carols. So now you're going to have to eat every cookie I bake. You know, so those are the kind of things that that happen along with the show. People have said, what are some of the lessons that you learned from doing the show? And I said, well, you know, we laugh a lot in the show. It is a musical comedy. We take a lot of liberties with Mr. Dickens, but those moments in the book that are treated so beautifully and so specially, we do the same with them in our production. And I know too that as much as people laugh in the show, that moment at the end of the show where the children in the cast gather in the center of the stage, Scrooge has had his change of heart. He's in a Santa hat and a Santa coat. He's just given Bob Cratchit a raise and brought them all presents. And the little children, to celebrate, gather in the center and they start to sing Noel. They get to the chorus and they stop singing and they look at Scrooge and they call him over. He goes over reluctantly because he has to sing the chorus by himself. I tell my cast, if you want to know what Christmas feels like, feel that moment before Scrooge starts to sing. You can put your hand out and the force will push it back. 2,400 people don't move or breathe. There's not a sound in that audience. And when Scrooge starts to sing Noel, most of those 2,400 people will shed a tear or two. Happy tears. And they'll walk out of that theater more willing, more able, more ready to celebrate the holidays. That is something I've learned in 40 years, that as much as we are willing to celebrate the season, we are so busy with the present that we don't take a lot of time to savor it. We have no claim on the future. But where do we go here and here over the holidays? We tend to go to Christmas past. And we tend to think about loved ones who are no longer with us. I think if you can touch that inner child, that bit of melancholy in your heart every year and work through it, which you're able to do in an instant sometimes. Seeing the Nutcracker Ballet or hearing the Messiah or seeing A Christmas Carol. You touch those places in your heart that need that yearly healing, you're more able to celebrate the season. And I think that is a combination that Mr. Dickens certainly knew, because in the book he goes back to Christmas past. That's the first ghost. He has to heal that hurt child. And then he moves forward into the present and literally goes and stands by his grave in the future. This is before 12-step programs and anything. Charles Dickens knew about this. Heal that inner child, and then you can celebrate and really live in the moment. So those are some of the great lessons that we've learned doing A Christmas Carol. I'm lucky because, like Ebenezer Scrooge, I was given a second chance about 4 years ago when I was diagnosed with a bad heart. The heart surgeon said I should have had a sign in my chest that said Sanford and Son. But I went in for surgery. I couldn't do A Christmas Carol. I didn't find out until right before we opened. The show was already blocked and ready to go. And my son, Ira David IV, stepped in to do the role for me. He did an incredible job. So like Scrooge, I got a second chance. And since November the 12th, 2010, I haven't had a bad day. Some days have been rougher than others, but every day's been a good day. And in a strange sort of way, I drew a little closer to Ebenezer Scrooge. I think there's a little bit of Scrooge in all of us around the holidays. So if you can come to A Christmas Carol, if you can see the show, if you can laugh a little bit, blow the carbon out of the pipes, you'll have a better Christmas. I hope you will this year. And so allow me, Ebenezer Scrooge, to be the first to wish you a very Merry Christmas.